Okay, looks like we're live. So anyway, thanks for joining us on March 16th, 2017 for our AppMaker office hours. So today it's going to be James and me together. We're going to be talking about a couple things. We had our conference last week in San Francisco, Google Next. So we were discussing maybe touching on a few things, some of our I don't know, observations and stuff from the conference itself. And then, at least on my side, I don't really have any new product updates, but I could walk through a demo that I put together that we were showing at the demo grounds. And so, I don't know, how does that sound? James, you want to also, I think you were going to show something as well, right?
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds perfect. Yeah, I've got something that also came out of Next. So that was announced there, the Dlp Api. I wanted to show some of that integration in AppMaker. So yeah, I think we got a couple great demos. You want to go first?
Oh, sure. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So just give me 1 second. So I'll just let that you can give me a verbal confirmation once you see my screen, and then I'll start to kind of step into what I'm doing here. So hopefully you can see my screen, right?
You should be good to go now.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, great. So the idea here is this is just, and I'll go ahead and click preview just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So this is like a sample app or like a quick demo app that I put together for the demo grounds. We had actually 4 different demo ground stations, and we were just us and the engineers were all going through and essentially building out a number of, or showing actually mostly templates and then how to do stuff from scratch. But this was one thing that I thought was kind of fun. And so just to kind of give you an idea of how it works, this is actually a little quick mashup demo of the Google Cloud Vision API and AppMaker. And the way it works is, and I'll just kind of walk through how it works very quickly, but what I've done is I've actually uploaded, or I've taken like a spreadsheet of image URLs just off the internet, and then I've loaded it into my app where I actually have the URLs now displaying, and then I make a call to the Vision API to analyze the image, and it will return back the essentially the metadata. And if you know the Vision API, I'm actually using the label detection. There's a couple different modes that you can do, and I found that this one was probably the most verbose on kind of general data. So as you can look here, you can see in the return JSON from the Vision API, like various things like cityscape and stuff like that. And you can even test it, like for example, if you were to type in like a key term. And also what I've done here is I've plugged in a search window that will go against this column here. And so if I type in city, it will match any text that shows the city here. So this is kind of like the basics of what I've done. And then what I also, just to make it a little bit more user friendly, here's like the finished version that you could actually show to like in a demo sense. So like for example, if I were to search for any images that contain a coast, or apparently Stonehenge has a coast, I guess, or I think it's actually not too far from the coast anyway. Let's see, landmarks, and so hopefully you get an idea of like how this thing works. And so this is like just a very simple draft kind of a demo, and I'll share that with the AppMaker user community as well. So what I'd like to do is now just show you how to build this from scratch, and that's actually kind of fun. So what I've done is I have a blank app here, and the first thing I want to do is I'm going to create a data model, and I'm going to just use the default Google Drive tables. In this case, I'm going to name the model images. And I'm going to base it off of that spreadsheet that I had before. So in this case, I have it right up here, this AppMaker Next raw images, which is essentially just a set of URLs, and it loads it into that image URL field. And so just 2 fields, the image URL and the info URL. So I click Create. And then while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and import the actual data from the spreadsheet. So let me just pull that up again, and this will go into my preview deployment. So whenever I click preview, that data will be live and ready to go. Incidentally, if you're familiar with publishing, for every deployment that you publish, you have to also manage its respective database. So you would be doing an import, and you can select the different deployments as you need to. So I'm just going through on my quick demo account, just authorizing the deployment to fetch data from the spreadsheets. and I'll send it on its way. And so once the deployment starts, I can go back to the application itself and start building out the functionality. So let's just first start off by renaming this. I'll call it main, I guess. And if you recall, oh, I should also name it too. I'll go image demo for that matter. So now I should have like a data model with all my images, but I don't really have any stuff to show here. So let's go ahead and build a basic UI so that I can work with the data. So in this case, I'm going to just drag and drop a table, accept the defaults, and leave it as such. And there we go. So let me stretch out the table a little bit. Whoops. Just going to get the grab point. And since I don't need to show the image URL, I'm going to replace that with an actual image widget. So I drag and drop the widget. And I can even customize the how it's displayed. I can add some margin. So in case you haven't seen this, this is a new feature, relatively new feature in AppMaker where you can kind of specify some of the stuff directly, like margin and padding. Whereas before, you'd have to get into the CSS. So it just saves you the hassle of editing direct CSS. Now, I no longer need this image URL, so I'll just delete it, and then everything kind of shifts over. And that's pretty much it. I don't think I need to do anything else, at least for now. So that's going to render my, also if you want to see the outlines, you can see like where all the content goes. So this is the outline viewer. It's very handy, especially if you want to know exactly where the boundaries are, the widgets. All right, so let's just do a quick preview to make sure I got all of my data looking correct. And then my next step is I'm going to add the image API code. All right. Or no, I guess the data's not loaded. Let's go back and double check. Oh, I forgot to do one thing. Let me go back into the, you can probably guess what I forgot to do. Or did you catch it? I didn't put the URL for the image itself, so I just need to bind it. So there we go. Okay, so these are the images that are showing up, and now what I'm going to do is add the code to actually analyze these images with the Vision API. So for that, I'm going to steal my code that I had in the finished version of this app here. And so what it does, I'll walk through it a little bit more closely, but what it does basically is it iterates through all the images, and then for each image, it will then call the Vision API through HTTP directly. And so I'll just replace this code with the code that's going to go through and do it. And the key thing that this code does is that it replaces the items, the info field in my items, my images, basically, with the contents. And this contents is retrieved from the image API directly. And the other thing that you'll need to do also is set yourself up with an image API key, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. And that essentially is appended to each HTTP request that you're sending to the Vision API. So I'll show you how to do that in a second, but for now, I'll just assume everything's working here. So the other thing that I'm going to do is I need to add a button that will trigger the image analysis. So I'll just create a little button here, and I'll say analyze images, and I'll change this, the look and feel to something a little bit easier to see. And then I'll change the on-click for analyze images to call the function, so it's a custom action. There we go. And that should work. And so now when I click on that, it's going to call for each one of, it's going to iterate over every image and then give us like a response back. Now to set this up so that it will also be able to search, I can just drag and drop a text box, and I can even style it such that it's like a search bar like. And for this one, I just have to data bind it to the to actually trigger the query. And so I click on binding. And for this one, I actually have to click on more options, which is the more advanced data binding UI. So I'm not just data binding a specific value, but I want to do like a query operation. So in this case, we have our advanced data binding UI. And I scroll down to the query option here. And I want to invoke a filter. And I want to set it such that the info field, so these are the fields, I want the info field to contain whatever text I've added into this box here. So I click OK, and then the other thing that I do is I set the event such that when any value changes, it will requery the data. So as you can see, I have on value change. I click on this and I just say reload data source. So there we go. So now that's going to trigger the query. So we should basically be up and running once I give this a shot. All right, so there's our raw images. We don't have any info, so I'll click on Analyze Images, and then we'll see if that kicks off or anything. Or if not, then I need to go back and debug my code. Let me go back and just double check to make sure I set the call there on my Analyze Images. Let me go look it up in the function here. There you go. It's like the live demos. Alrighty. It looks correct. Anyway, we'll have to double check that. All right, I'll click preview, and I'll check the console if there's anything going on. Oh yeah, looks like there's an error. Anyway, I won't get into too much detail, but that actually usually works just fine the first time. Let me switch back to this finished version. I'll walk through it a little bit more just so you can see. So this is the page that I'm building, and I'm calling Analyze Images, and that seems to work. Let me just go ahead and finish that one off. So there's my raw images. So I put a little utility to clear it out, and I'll click on Analyze Images again, and then now you can see the data is coming back. And then also if I wanted to do a search, you can see also everything's still working. Incidentally, if I wanted to add an image, I also put in this little dialog here, which then if I wanted to pull something randomly off the internet, I could do that and add it in here. But I'll just leave that for now. And then the other thing that I did was I created this other, I won't go into too much detail, but I had this page here that I created where, in this case, I could just put in like a simple search window and then create a grid. And let me show you how I did that really quickly. So for that one, I just used a grid widget. And then inside the grid widget, I placed my image and did the same thing where I just did bound it to the image URL. All right, so and then of course there's my dialog, and that's just invoked via the add image button here. So that's pretty much it. I don't know if I want to go into debugging exactly why that first one didn't work, but typically it works. You just drop in the code, and since I have an API key already set up, it works fine. Also, let me just show you how I can extract the API key. So as you may know, every time you create a deployment, which is either through previewing or creating a brand new deployment, the project, it takes your runtime app script and sends it over to the Google Cloud project that's created for you on the fly. And then you also have the ability to turn on APIs. So what I've done there, which I'll show you just in case you missed it, I've actually clicked on this server logs link here inside the preview window. And that actually opens up a quick and easy access to the cloud platform project that's running this particular application. So you can even see this project. This is the done version of this image DB database. Now in this case, if I wanted to then go in and then turn on an API, hopefully if you know the cloud platform, you can then access it directly here and say enable an API. And then you just go through, and in this case, like the Vision API. So I won't go through all the details here, but hopefully this gives you kind of like an idea that, yeah, you can always jump over to the Cloud Platform project turn on APIs, set up any kind of additional authorization. Also, I should say that in general, you can set up the different types of authorizations, and they do have kind of, at least in this case, like just a simple API key, which you can do. All right. So that's probably it for now. I don't know if I'll go into too much more detail on this, other than that I'll just go ahead and share the this version of the application to our overall user community. That way you can play around with it as well. And then also, just have a look at how the Vision API stuff does it. Again, I'm just using a straight client-side fetch. You could also write the code such that it does a server-side fetch using the app script URL fetch call. But in this case, I was just using the simple AJAX fetch that goes directly to the service. Oh, one thing I did notice is when you do use a client-side fetch, sometimes it may not fetch the image because of the fact that there's certain origin policies that might be in the header for the image. So you kind of have to pick and choose some of the images. Also, the fetch works only with HTTPS. Again, this is just kind of a quick demo, so I wouldn't get too caught up into it. And then probably for a real application, you could send it over to the, make the request from the server. And I think even James has been working on a version of this that does it directly from the server. So cool. I don't know, how does that look? Any questions? Or James, did you have any observations on that in particular?
It's great, and actually it did inspire me to also build one myself based on your example. So that was really one of those great things that I was looking at. Let's see, I was going to show you. I had that server side. Can you see my my app maker screen here?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So Chris was talking about that server side code. So here's the implementation of that, where we are sending off a request. This is the request here to the Vision API server using the URL fetch service, and then that's what's returning basically the same results. And then what I had done was I parsed those results and just got the labels. For the
that's the one thing that I didn't do on mine. I just kind of dumped the entire response into the info column, mainly because I was just doing kind of like a quick and dirty, like contains query against it. But yeah, in this case, in a real application, you can definitely get very precise on the specific information. Oh, perfect.
Yeah. But I was looking, you had those really cool cards for each of your images. They look like little images. Did you do that with some CSS or?
No. So what I did was, if you click on the grid widget directly, and you might even be able to do this right now on your app.
Let's check it out. Let's give it a try.
Go to the grid page there, and then click on the entire grid, not the image itself, but click on the entire grid.
Sure.
And then see where on the styling where it says regular, on the top left on the variant picker.
Oh, right. Sure. Yep.
Switch that over to cards.
Cards. Well, hey, let's
and give that a whirl. See how that works.
a preview and see how that looks. See if that dresses it up even more. That's really nice. That's something that to also mention is each widget has its own variant menu, each widget type, and you never know what might be under there. Like just here, I guess I'd never thought to click on the variants for a grid widget, and lo and behold, look at that! It makes those really nice cards, and if you click them, they stand out. Well, that's actually, if I click that, it's actually going to go to the picture, but but the one that's selected actually stands out. So that's really neat functionality.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's just a matter of experimentation many times.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's like this. App Maker is so vast. There are so many features that are just packed in there that it's like, even when you use it every day, like I do, you're always finding something new. Just like today, I had actually added the document picker, which is really easy to do. It's one of the widgets that's available in App Maker. So let's just I can just go ahead and upload a photo. We'll just click over to the desktop here and see if we can find something that I haven't uploaded yet. And so it just uploads directly, and then that'll load that picture into our UI there. And what I did is I just created a little pop-up here to where we can actually see what those labels were after it gets scanned from the Vision API. and allows you to see, a bigger image. A little clicking on the images actually opens them, but a little bit bigger view of the photo.
So then you just put the labels in like that. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And the Vision API, I mean, it's really, this is a great thing to add to any kind of, especially with images that you're uploading, because, so if I type in, lab, I get just the labs, and if I'm typing in Beagle.
Yeah, exactly. I had so much fun playing with this.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So it was great.
And to be honest, this is just scratching the surface. I mean, there's so many other mashups that are doable, I think, and even start to combine things. So I think, yeah, it's just at least with AppMaker, you can play with these things pretty easily without having to commit to like tons of code. Now, obviously, the fetch code is something that you do have to write, essentially to talk to the API. But once you're up and running with that, it's, yeah.
Yeah, and that is true. The fetching part because these aren't built in yet, but they may be advanced services in the future that are a little bit more straightforward to use without writing code. But the code is pretty boilerplate now, and actually I put together here on AppMaker University, I've actually got this template down here at the bottom if you want to download it and start from there. And the code is pretty boilerplate. So you just put in your API key like Chris showed you how to do that, and it just runs. And so, you just do the authorization and you're good to go. So that's really, really easy. Oh, Chris, did you show them how to get to how to easily get to the console? I might have looked away for
I did it fairly quickly, but you could also do it as well.
Server logs here.
Definitely like kind of the key ingredient on how to turn on APIs and such. But yeah, you can show that to them right now.
Yeah, so one of the places you can get there is if you just click on server logs here, down at the bottom, and when you're in preview mode, you have that menu. And if you're in your deployment, there's also another link there, and it'll bring you up to the cloud platform logging service where you can actually keep an eye on your app, because anything you're logging will show up here, and then you can just click on the little hamburger over here and click on your API manager. And then going through the API manager, you're able to enable the APIs and set the credentials and that kind of thing. So,
yeah, exactly.
We'll go back over that again. I had another mashup that I was wanting to show you. So
I did solve my problem with my app, just so you know.
Oh, good.
Well, the version that I created, if you recall, I'm using a little bit of jQuery because I had some variations where I actually had a form where you could upload an image directly from your computer into the API. And so in that sense, I had like a little mini form that I was also using. And then I used jQuery to refer to that form. Obviously, in this latest version, I didn't necessarily do that, mainly because I was just going straight off the internet in this case. But yeah, so yeah, my version now works. Just I could show it to you, but it's no big deal. But yeah, anyway, that was it. I may remove jQuery from that one, or I might throw in the actual form part of it, and then you can play with that as well. So
do that, yeah. So the other thing that got announced
just a question
next. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. I just wanted to address it before you moved away from the Vision API. Does that only work with like exclusively images, or could you do something like doc previews as well?
I don't know offhand. I would look into the Vision API docs a little bit more closely to see if that.
Yeah, it'll recognize text and things. I don't know. It's going to scan. I mean, if you're wanting to do something like OCR a document or something like that, then you'd probably want to use Drive to do the OCR.
Well, I mean, it does do text detection. That's one of the detections that it's offered. But typically you would send it up. Well, at least in my work that I've done with it, you can see that there's and it's documented as well. There's like a number of different types of detection, whether it's face detection, text label detection, and landmark detection, and so forth. And these are all documented on the Vision API. But if what you're trying to do is kind of do like a typical document OCR, a preview or something like that, I don't think you could set that up directly. I think basically the approach you could do is just as you scan a document, that's literally as if you were to scan a text page like from a scanner and then generate like a new PNG or something like that. You could then definitely send that to the Vision API to have it scan it and provide back essentially the OCR response and then see how that works. But that's definitely an area that also we were talking about. That could be a pretty nice more enterprisey demo. So basically taking like a lot of text documents and then scanning them in and then turning that into actual, searchable and usable text in that sense. So that's a good idea if that's down the path. That's something that might be nice to also make a variation of this, instead of searching for puppies, but you can do full text search and things like that off of the scanned in documents. That would be pretty cool.
That really sounds like fun. I think we're gonna have to try that out. So.
Yeah, totally.
We'll do that afterwards.
But it does work quite well, at least my very limited experimentation of text, or essentially documents. And I was trying out some stuff that wasn't purely like printed, but cursive, or at least some handwritten stuff, and I was getting some interesting results. So anyway, some fun stuff to experiment with, definitely.
Awesome. So one of the things they announced at Next was the Google Dlp API, and it allows you to detect sensitive information within text strings and within images. And they had these this cool little setup, one of the booths, where they had a webcam.
Define what DLP means, actually, just in case.
Oh yeah. DLP actually stands for data loss prevention. Oh, you know what? I had the here's the API for it. And so it basically allows you to classify and redact any kind of sensitive data that you might have within the organization. You see this a lot in corporate transactions, where you might be like, right now it's built into Gmail and into Drive, so that you can't share or send, try to send something with your credit card number in it through your Gmail, for your corporate Gmail account. It's going to stop you and say you can't send that email out because it's got sensitive data in it. So it has a lot of other uses where you could define things like, other kinds of like, maybe it's patient health information, or maybe it's just personal information, the PII, that you want to stop. But we also have a way of analyzing things before we actually put them into databases and other places. So I had just thrown together just a quick mashup, not much in the way UI or anything like that. But so what we have here is we've just got a simple text box that's not bound to anything up here at the top. And I'll type in here something here like my phone number is, and we won't really have my phone number here, but 555. And my social security number is 333-2-1-4354. Okay. These are not real numbers, if you're wondering. But I might be trying to send this in internal text messaging application that we've built on AppMaker, or any kind of something that we've built that we're exchanging some or putting in data, and we want to make sure that we keep any kind of personal information out of our database, out of our system, as a company policy. And so if I were to hit this is a submit button to the text box, the box below that says cleared text, that's actually the database that I have attached here. And what it's going to do is it's going to send this request off to the Dlp API. It's going to sanitize it and then replace any of the sensitive information it found with these asterisks. So that's kind of a really neat thing they can do, and of course it's capable of doing much more sophisticated things. But this is just an example of it actually functioning here in AppMaker. But the other thing, you just have something else to say about that, Chris?
No, I was just saying that's cool. I haven't actually played with that. I was starting to wonder, and maybe you know this already, but like, how do you tweak it if you want to like sanitize, like, for example, bad words, things like that?
Yeah, it has tons and tons of settings. It's a pretty, the docs were pretty thick. I just did the basics on this one here, and you can see my prototypes doesn't even have a headers or navigation or anything. The other thing that was really cool though is at the booth they had at Next. And was really neat was they had this little webcam set up there facing down, and they would put out phony social security cards and driver's licenses and things like that, and scan those and scan them into there, and it would redact the information right off the image. And I thought, well, that's really cool if it can do that. I wonder if we could do that in AppMaker. So I, of course, found a social security card out on the internet, and this is John O. Public, so obviously this is a fake, social security.
No, John.
You do? Oh, yeah. Well, I've got his social security card.
Yeah. He's pretty cool with it. He's had some identity theft issues lately, but that's okay. Maybe.
Yes. And now we're showing his number to everybody in
Yeah.
the world. But we don't want that in our database. So
Yeah,
in
he'll be
this case,
appreciative, definitely. Yeah.
what we're going to do is once I click the redact image button here, we're going to send this image off to the DLP API server, and it's going to analyze it, and it's going to send us back the redacted version. So let's see how that works. So click the button, and it's going off. And there we go. It's located the sensitive information and redacted it off the image. So that's pretty cool. You know.
Yeah, very cool.
And so of course these are running in AppMaker.
Cool. So, quick question, and again, I'm asking from just totally like someone who hasn't actually played with the API. Are the credentials essentially the same deal as what we were showing?
No, it actually does use OAuth, and it's using a secret. It's using a private key.
Okay. Oh, that's good to know.
Setups, and once I get this more in kind of template version, because right now it needs some more help, and I want to be able to upload images and have them scanned and have you verify whether or not you want to redact them, that kind of thing. So I'll create a little template that actually does some of that stuff so that it looks a little nicer, and then I'll give the instructions. It's a little bit harder to get the private key than the API keys, because you actually have to create a service account and stuff like that. So it's a few more steps, and so I'll make sure I highlight all that.
We should put we should probably do a walkthrough or something like that on that steps, because I mean, again, it's for the folks that are at least somewhat already familiar with that. It's a little bit more painful, obviously, but at least for the folks that are inclined or have some familiar with setting up setting up OAuth requests, it can be a little bit more than you'd want to get into if you're just building simple business apps in that sense. Yeah, exactly. Private client, blah blah.
Private keys are pretty long and that kind of thing, and you can so this is on the server side, and the numbers run off the screen, and I'll probably turn this project off anyway, so I'm not too worried about those getting out.
One thing that I was curious, and since you have since you're projecting right now, the shared folder that we've set up for the AppMaker users, which we also were sharing with our trusted testers, if you would like to show that, or I could bring it up on mine and then present my screen. But basically, that's a shared resource that we've been using ever since we kicked off the trusted tester. And there's like a lot of example applications that you're definitely welcome to have a look at. Let me see. Maybe I can do that easier.
Yeah, we can switch over to your screen here. So that's essentially the code. It is a few lines of code. I guess I have some other stuff in here. There's some code in here for moving files to Drive and changing the owner and some things like that as well. That will eventually be part of this. So if you're watching, those actually are kind of some valuable little pieces of code, changing the file owner and things like that. We see a lot of that on domains when uploading folders, so they can get put into a central location and then change the owner to a service account. So that's something we use often.
Okay, so can you see my screen? I'll give it a.
Yep, it's switched over.
So again, this is just you can look for AppMaker files for TT/EAP, and this is a folder that we created a while back, and so. The idea being that whenever we just want to put stuff out, which is maybe a work in progress or a quick demo, we put this together, and then we can share this out. And so definitely invite folks to, if you want to kind of explore some of the content. We could probably even clean this up a little bit more. But in general, you can see there's a whole bunch of good stuff here that has been created. Some of it might be a little bit dated, and we could probably go through and I could spend some time and maybe clean up some of this. But for the most part, like for example, if you want to know how to integrate the actual Maps API with AppMaker, as opposed to just purely using the Maps widget, but if you want to say put a bunch of points on a Google Map, this quick sample that I put together, it's just kind of like a draft, does actually walk through and show how to build that out. So I showed this last summer during our trusted tester phase, but maybe I might do a revamp and just kind of clean it up, or at least make sure it's running on the latest version of AppMaker and share that. But again, this is all these files and shared content that we're putting together is still definitely available to try out. And we have even partners and customers that are throwing things out there that you're welcome to do the same. Anyway, and I'll probably send out another reminder to our user group as well that we do have this resource that we're just using to share code with our EAP users.
Definitely, yeah. We'll have to get that. Maybe we should put the link to that folder up on the group.
Yeah, exactly. And what I've done is, like, anyone who's a member of AppMaker-users, the Google group, and also just in case anyone is not a user or has an account, let me just pull this up really quickly. So this is the AppMaker-users account. It is taking over the AppMaker Trusted Tester user group that we used over the summer. But the difference is that this is actually a public group and anyone can join. And so, yeah, we'd definitely encourage folks to migrate over, if they're still on the Trusted Tester group, to this new group here. And there's even a short link that I put in here just in case you want to try it out. Sorry, let me just put up. Double check the short link there. But yeah, that short link, which is message sent right here, is the one you can do. Okie doke. I'll go ahead and quit presenting. So is there anything else that you wanted to discuss on your side?
Yeah, I was just looking to see if we had any other questions. Let's see. Looks like there's some questions about calendar apps out there, and actually we're working on a calendar app now, which is kind of interesting. And there have been some interesting ideas around certain things. So like things like finding a certain date, or finding dates for a certain day. And what we had noticed was when you're in a text box, a date box, and you save the date to the database, it doesn't save the time. And so when you're searching, you have to know about that. But it can also be really useful, because if you save a date like that, then you're able to also get all the days, all the appointments for that certain day. So that's kind of an interesting workaround to doing between dates, which can be a little bit more complicated to code. This question had to do with, so it actually says, would like to know if AppMaker can pull start dates and end dates from a record and display on a calendar in-app.
I would say display on a calendar is the specific thing that you would want to do, and maybe you've done this, James, but you could. So we have our date picker widget, which is typically the usage is that you use it to select a date, and that widget itself wouldn't necessarily be the one to just display like a static view of a calendar. And so what we've seen a lot of our users do is they actually build out kind of either their own, or they leverage like an existing third-party calendar. So for example, jQuery has a calendar view, and I've seen that being used in some past AppMaker projects. But it looks like James is pulling up something here, if that matches what you're saying.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Oh, okay, so this is a slightly, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so this is one of the apps that we've been working on, and we actually have permission to show some of this, so that's okay. So kind of an interesting, just doing a different scheduling. So being able to schedule different appointments and things like that, being able to go through the different days of the week and changing those. So those are some neat things that you can do. Also getting your date picker object up here to just jump to certain days allows you. Now this is all being done with binding through those dates, like I was mentioning. So each of these, the data source is the same, and then we're using just reloads and things like that and binding these different pieces together. We created a kind of an interesting little piece here that allows you to, and I'll do this for Saturday so you can see those new ones come up. What we wanted to do is be able to save them a little bit of time and have them set a start hour. So let's say 3 o'clock for when they would have open slots for these scheduled appointments, and be able to say, so from 3 p.m. to 5:30, because there are half-hour slots for these certain appointments. For 5:30 p.m., we would want to create an appointment slot for every half hour. So we create those, and we're still working on this. It's a work in progress. So we'd actually have to jump to Saturday. Let's jump over there, and you'll get to see those appointments were created there on Saturday every half hour. So kind of a neat implementation using different kinds of date objects to accomplish that.
Cool. So I don't actually have access to the questions. So if there's anything else we want to touch on.
Let's see here. Let's see. So let's see. We have need help with drop downs. List box from another source. Okay. Do you want to do that one, Chris? Or you want me to show some?
Maybe if you want to take a first stab at it, since you can see the question. I don't know.
Well, yeah, it's just asking about getting lists from other boxes or other
sources of data.
Other sources of data, yeah. So.
Yeah, there's definitely several ways to do it. I mean, you could talk about how you can hard code it even if you wanted to put a JavaScript array into the options directly, or you can set it up in the possible values. And so, yeah, there's definitely a couple options that you could probably walk through.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that maybe we'd get another response there about that while I was working this out. But we have a few minutes since we do, and we haven't had any questions there. So let's just create a quick, let's see, let's call this, let's call it make. Well, let's create a couple of quick little databases here to just show kind of how you could do drop downs. One way of doing some drop downs.
So yeah, I guess in this sense, you're going to create like a model that's going to contain the various options, and then you're going to data bind that to your drop down. Is that fair?
Yeah, I was thinking of just doing just a simple one to show like sorting, so from one drop down to another kind of thing.
Okay. So this is good if you have like a variable set of dropdowns that you need to essentially use from a database. But there's other use cases where it could just be like, a few statically coded values, and that's where you could set it up as literally like a set of possible values for a particular field. That's one way where you actually still use the model binding. Or the other one is like if you just drag and drop a dropdown directly, and then you put the options literally into the property, like you for lack of a better description, you hard code it directly into the widget itself without even dealing with the backend data model. And there's different reasons why you might want to do it. Like if you have a check or a radio button that has select your gender, obviously you're not going to be pulling from a database for that very simple case. But obviously there's the other one, which is I guess what James is doing, where you're going to set up like a quick. Are you going to make these related?
Yeah. So
okay.
I was going to show a quick. Red.
Don't forget if you're using jQuery, and then yeah.
Blue, green. So I was going to show a couple different drop downs, kind of all at once here.
Make sure you add it. You got to click on add. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I missed the.
Click on the add.
It was a little too close. Actually, I'll change this to color. So this is really nice because when you do change it, it does change your display name. So that's kind of nice. And that propagates. If you already have widgets out on the screen in your app, and you do change the name in your data source, it will update those. So you don't
exactly, because there's an expression. So if you experiment with dragging out forms or tables or whatever, and it refers to the display name, it actually keeps it using the expression. So yeah.
So let's see. So we want to create a couple of quick relations here. So one is going to be that the make. So a make has one make has several models, many. So that's one relationship.
And select the model.
Did I miss it?
Model. Yeah, I can see how it might be. Or
yeah. Actually,
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. There's
No worries.
we're not fans of homonyms. And so on the models, let's see, let's make a relationship here. So we also have, we'll make another relationship. When it goes from, so a model will have, one model will have many details. And so there's just a couple of quick relations. So they're basically just kind of cascading down, down the page there. So let's go over to our page, and if we set that source to, we'll start off with the top, which is the make. That's the data bound there. And just to make this
the default data source for the page, right? Just clarity.
Yeah. So default data source for the page there. And so we want to have a, we'll just inherit that. And I do want to be able to edit these. And we'll click next, and we'll just click next. And so we're just going to get a simple list here. We do need something to be able to add to this. So I'm just going to throw a button in here. Say add. We'll click create new item, and we'll even change it to a little mini fab. There we go. Okay, so that gives us a way to add a record to this little data table here that we're going to have. And so what we want to do next is we're going to drag out, let's make the next list. So we're going to have a couple lists that we'll sort here. These could work a lot like drop downs, and this one's going to be the make model relation. We'll click next on that. I don't want to change the relationship, so actually I don't even want to see it. So we'll just have the name there, next. Click finish, and so that creates another list that we can create here. And then what I can do here is I don't need to create another button. I can just take and copy that one and just select here and paste it there. Actually, I like where that's at better anyway. And that because it's this data source is the one we inherited, the button is generic. So it's just picking up whatever its inherited model is. So we don't have to make a new button and set a new click handler. We can just do it just like that. Now for the details, we have to do something just a little bit different. And let's just throw a fixed panel out here onto the page. And drag that out. We need to set its data source to the make model relationship. And now we can drag because if you notice, we don't have a relationship to the details.
And you can make that panel invisible if you wanted to. Like if you turn on your outlines, and that way it's not really, it really doesn't matter, but I mean.
Do that. So if we turn on the outlines, we'll be able to see it, and then we could just go with background. And
exactly.
Disappear. Well, it won't disappear because we have the outlines there, but
you can make it slightly bigger than the table as well, so it's so you don't. But yeah,
let's just throw out that last table here. See if I can actually get it in the box. Now we have this model details relation that we can also take advantage of. So click next on that. We do want to be able to change that color that we were creating. And we'll click next and finish. And so now we've created a set. Oh, I actually didn't want the model name.
Your parent. Oh yeah.
Yeah, just get rid of that. And that right back inside there. There we go. Okay, that looks better. All right, and so that we do need one more of those buttons. Again, we can just click on one of these guys and paste it in there, and now we've got the 3 buttons, and that should run. Let's give it a try. So this is basically going to give us let's see, filling in. I was reading through these comments while this is loading here. Filling in more fields, not just the one field, i.e. phone number, email. This box from another source. Okay. Yeah, and there might be a couple other. There's so many ways to do this, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely showing probably like the well, at least in this case, like a set of related options, which you're then implementing via the AppMaker data model relation mechanism, which is definitely cool. Actually, having like the master detail, having that all being driven together, and then how you can set that up pretty quickly. But yeah, if there's also time, we could show like the very simplistic way. If you just had like a few options, show them in a drop down, and that's pretty easily done. Also, when you generate forms, any forms that have relationships will automatically give you a drop down for free. So that's also another thing. Like if you were to build just this model directly, and then if you were to build a corresponding form as opposed to a table, and where the form refers to its parent model through the relationship, it will generate a drop down for you as well.
So looks like we're just going to have Ford trucks here. And then, of course, in our colors, we can have, so this was the drop down. So this drop down was automatically created because we put possible values in for the database.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Oh, that's right. You did that for the other ones. Yep, exactly.
And of course, you see how I'm changing these different records and getting the selection. So they're all, you can see how it changes each cascading record. So like Corvette, this is, did I put red in here? Oh, good, because I have to have a red Corvette. I don't know. These are probably going to be green because they're so green. So as we as we move between Ford and Chevy, we can get the different. You can see it cascades throughout the whole system as you're changing the different pieces. So that's kind of a neat example of how you could do different kinds of selections. So like say you were trying to pick parts for your car. This is one way you could very quickly build the selections and for the car, and then you'd be able to do a query on another data source that holds all the parts based on the make, model, and color of the car, or something like that. So I think one of the other things we could show here is, see if I can get just a little bit more room here on this panel. Oh, that is that panel.
That's, yeah.
So we could skip back over and let's just go to details here and make one more field here. Now this is called selection. It's just a string field, and like Chris was saying, we can actually drag. Let's just copy that, and
You don't have to clear it, but yeah, anyway, that's fine. You can just use the
yeah. No, I was just gonna
expression.
I'm running out of room on my page here, so
Yeah.
Put these things back over here so everybody's on the page and we can see all the different pieces. And so what I was going to do, this is another simple way that we can create a text box. And let's see, drag out a drop down here. I'll toss it in here. And so you notice that the spacing's not quite the same as these, and why that is the default ones have some extras on the spacings. So you can see it's got 16, or the margins left and right are 24 and 18. So if you wanted to set those on these, you see they don't have any. So you could do 24 and 18. And often I'll just copy another one.
Yeah, that's what I typically do. I just copy, and then that way it's got that stuff built into it. And
if you're wondering why yours doesn't look the same as the defaults, this is why. And so it's really easy to fix. You can just type in the numbers if you want.
Exactly.
So what we want to do on the value for this, we're just going to go ahead and bind it to selection, which is that new field we just made. And then in options, this is going to be one of those super simple ways. It takes an array, so we can just do the square brackets. That's the open and close.
Exactly. That's the very simple version of what I mentioned the first time. But yeah, that's correct.
And they are quoted strings, so quote it, and they're separated by a comma. Just do test and drive, and then we hit OK on that, and then if we preview, we'll be able to do some selections there. So we have test and drive in our selection. So that's another easy way to get selections into there.
Did you data bind that to the field? I forget if
I did.
You did. Okay, I did. So
we can find out by changing it and then changing it back. Yep.
Oh, nice.
Now another way, and this is another one, and this is going to get a little bit kind of It seems like it's going to seem like it goes in a circle. So let's say we wanted to also have the make in there, and this will kind of show two things at once. So we know we have a couple things in our make piece here, and if we were to say bind this field here, the options, and we wanted to use the data binding, we could do data sources, make items, and then projections name. Oops, I'm gonna get rid of this. And then that should show us the names that are available from that other model, right?
Yep.
But we're going to see an error. We're going to see an issue. I'm actually intentionally doing this here. We're only going to have one selection available to us, and that's the one currently selected here.
So we're getting the hook on our time. So
yep.
Yeah, this is really cool. Thanks for actually walking through and then just building this on the fly. Notice that you haven't actually done any coding. It's just all built into the system. So that's pretty cool.
Cool
Was
stuff.
there anything else on the chat for the live stream that we might want to quickly?
Let's see. They had filling in more than one field is just one field. Nope. I think we actually got that one. It looks like I think they said that. Thank you very much for answering that. So that's a good thing. So I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen somewhere here. But all right, cool. So there we are. Anyway, so
I guess since you're projecting, I'll go ahead and say hi again. So
yeah, I thought we'd just actually say hi in person, so they didn't think we were robots from Google with a special new speech API or something, Yeah.
Well, cool. I think we can wrap it up, but thanks so much. We'll go ahead and make sure to share this. We'll just do a quick review before we share it, and then we'll send out a message to the AppMaker users group with this video once we're up and running. Also, if you didn't see, we did the video recording from our last one, March 2nd, I believe, and we'll just continue on in this fashion, doing fun stuff. So
yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, James. Really cool stuff.
And if you watch the video later, and we do this every 2 weeks, so tune in next time and ask all kinds of questions. We love it.
Yeah, we'll probably be able to give another sneak preview of our template work. So we've been cranking away on getting some new stuff up and running. We might even share some early versions of those templates in our shared folder. And so these are basically turnkey solutions that show you how to do some pretty cool stuff. A couple weeks ago, we did show like some sneak previews, so we'll probably return to that a little bit. But yeah, I think we're good to go.
Great. All right. Thanks a lot, Chris.
Cool. All right. I'll see you. I'm going to sign off.
Okay. Bye.